Welcome. Thank you for watching this teaching video from Oak Tree Community Church in South Bend, Indiana. Please check out our other videos and don't forget to like and subscribe. Our mission is to help people come to know Jesus better and love Him more every day. We believe this will not only help our own spiritual growth, but also help us better influence the community and the world for Christ. For more information about Oak Tree, please visit us at oaktreechurch.com. There you'll find past message series, online giving options, and more information about our discipleship process that we call The Path. Now enjoy this message. We'd love to hear from you in the comments or the website contact form. Thank you.
Today we come to Revelation chapter 13. Now last week in chapter 12, we started this section with the dragon and the woman and the sun and the moon and the stars and all of the stuff that people tend to think about if they have any experience in the Revelation at all. Dragon is one of the things that comes to mind first. Well, we had to get halfway through the book before we finally found one. Okay, there's only 22 chapters. Chapter 12 starts the second half of the book. And interestingly, it starts the second half, it really kicks in the second half of the 70th week. The 7 years that Daniel learned about that is going to come. And according to Daniel chapter 9, the purpose of these final 7 years, it's a total of 490 that we see in the past and in the future. The purpose of these 7 years in Daniel chapter 9 is to bring to an end, bring to a completion, bring to a fulfillment several things that God has wanted to do with Israel, and they've been resistant. And finally, He's going to fulfill them. So bring an end to iniquity, to sin, to righteousness, to justice, all of that sort of thing. And we've seen that there will be a new temple, and sacrifices will start up again, and that's going to come up again here in chapter 13, and then that's going to be put to an end probably somewhere around the midpoint, and that's where we are in chapters 12 and 13. Satan has been kicked out of heaven at this midpoint, not yet, not today. He still has access to heaven. We saw in chapter 12 that he's still accusing believers of our sin in heaven. Israel runs into the wilderness. Can we put this up? I know it's a little hard to see. And for those online, I want to make sure that they can see what we're doing here. So Satan is going to be kicked out of heaven at the midpoint here. Israel is going to flee into the wilderness, run into the wilderness, possibly what is currently the nation of Jordan, to a fortress. Some people think there's a fortress in the mountains called Petra that they will be hiding out. So Israel will be in the wilderness, protected there supernaturally by God. And those who either don't make it or who don't know about it yet, Satan is going to wage war. And for the last 3.5 years of this 7-year period, Satan is going to be at war with all Jews. Whether they believe in God or not, whether they believe in Jesus or not, doesn't matter. He hates people anyway. He hates all people, but he especially hates the Jewish people. And so he's going to be at war with all Jews, and then he's also going to be at war with all believers. Everybody who comes to faith during this time, he's going to be at war with. And we've seen already that some of the judgments in chapters 8 and 9 are going to take place during this time. I think that the 2 witnesses from chapter 11 are going to take place during this time, and they will be a constant thorn in the side, a constant irritation of Satan and his system during this time, because they can't be killed. They're going to execute people, they're going to preach, they're going to do all sorts of things, but they can't be killed until the very end. And we saw in chapter 11 that when they are killed, the world will have the biggest party the world has ever had. To the point where they're going to be on the news 24/7, where people can look at the dead bodies at any time they want to and send gifts and gift cards and Venmo and all the other stuff to each other. Okay? Because they are so happy that these guys are finally dead. That's what it's going to look like at this time. In fact, Jesus, in Matthew chapter 24 and the Mark and Luke accounts, wherever they are. In Matthew 24, Jesus says that this period at the end, people are going to be marrying and giving in marriage. They're going to be laughing. They're going to be partying, just like the days of Noah, just like the days of Lot before destruction comes. And part of that is going to be because these two guys are dead. That's how happy the world is going to be. Well, we have to pick up at the end of chapter 12 here. And take a look at verse 17, chapter 12, verse 17. So the dragon became enraged at the woman, and the woman is, I think the woman is the nation of Israel. We had a really good discussion about that during second hour last week. Enraged at the woman and went away to make war on the rest of her children, and I think that's the Jewish people, those who keep God's commandments and hold to the testimony about Jesus. Now, look at verse 18. I think it sort of fits better with chapter 13. It's sort of a transition verse. Now, the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Bum, bum, bum. Okay? I think that is what John, that's the tone that John had in mind when he wrote that, when he saw that. There is something, maybe not that exact one, but there is something ominous that is about to happen. John is shifting, the vision is shifting, and the dragon has become enraged. The dragon has attacked the nation of Israel, the people who are fleeing into the wilderness, and now he turns his attention, and almost, if you think of it like a movie, I'm almost seeing one of two things. John either sees the back of this thing now, as he's looking from Israel out into the Mediterranean Sea, or from John's perspective, it's like the dragon turns and he's looking at him eye to eye. Okay? Now that is purely speculation. That's just the way I read it. I mean, it could be anything. But this verse right here, this verse 18, is a transition from the dragon waging war against people on earth. And now there's an anticipation. Something is about to happen, and that's what chapter 13 tells us. Chapter 13 is going to introduce the beasts, 3 beasts specifically. And I think it's important that we interpret these very carefully, because if all we do is we just read through this, it can be sometimes a little confusing. Who or what are we talking about here? I'm going to refer to the beast with a capital B as the beast system. This is Satan's kingdom has finally come to this world at this point, the midpoint of the 70th week. Satan's kingdom has finally come to this world in a way that we have never seen it before, ever. Okay, you think it's bad now? Wait until Satan is completely confined to this earth and is given a long, long, long leash to do almost anything he wants. Okay? To the point where God has to supernaturally protect people in order to keep them safe. That's how much latitude that Satan is going to have in this world. And one of the times, or one of the ways that the word beast ends up being used is sort of like the system, sort of like the satanic kingdom. Sometimes beast, and I'm going to use the lowercase b for this, sometimes the word beast refers to what we'll say the spokesman or the face of the beast or the lead guy, okay? We typically call him Antichrist. Right? So sometimes beast refers to the system as a whole. Sometimes beast refers to the man who's sort of like heading up the whole thing. Okay? And we need to make that distinction. Further down in chapter 13 here, then we are introduced to a second beast. Okay, well, that one is a little bit easier to distinguish because, there's a second beast. It's going to be second like the first in that it's going to be another human. Okay, I think the lowercase beast, not the system, but the man, and the second beast, who we end up finding out later on, is called the false prophet. He is going to end up supporting Antichrist. Okay, and they're working together as a team. We see that here in chapter 13. But those are the 3 systems, or the three ways of using beasts. So we need to make sure that we see that. So here's what John saw in chapter 13. After the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore, then I saw a beast And of course, in our text, it's not going to make a distinction between capital and lowercase. This, I think, is the capital B beast. This is the system. Okay, and I'll show you why. I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. And it had 10 horns and 7 heads, and on its horns were 10 diadem crowns, and on its heads a blasphemous name. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Does anybody remember anything about this? If we scroll back just a little bit into chapter 12, look at how the dragon was described in verse 3. Another sign appeared in heaven, a red dragon that had, ready, 7 heads, 10 horns, and on its heads were 7 diadem crowns. So the exact same way that Satan is described in chapter 12, we see this beast. And this is why I think it's the beast system. It is basically Satan's entire character, Satan's entire world. Everything that Satan is going to be coming on this world. Okay? Coming on this world. Now, the sea, especially from a Jewish perspective, a lot of times in prophecy, the sea often refers to the Gentile world. Okay, not 100% of the time, so we don't want to be dogmatic about this, but the sea often refers to the Gentile world. The land often refers to the land of Israel. If that's true here, then what could be happening is that the beast system is primarily a Gentile-based system, which makes sense. Okay, and Antichrist is probably a Gentile, in my opinion. I think he's a Gentile. It makes sense because back in Daniel chapter 9, we're told that it is the prince who is coming, Antichrist who is coming. His people are going to destroy Jerusalem, going to destroy the temple, going to lay everything waste. Well, it was the Roman Empire that did that in the year AD 70. It was a Gentile world empire that destroyed Jerusalem, that destroyed the temple. So it sort of makes sense that if he is coming from that people, that he is a Gentile, they are a Gentile world empire, and it sort of fits with the concept that John sees this beast coming up out of the sea. Think the Mediterranean Sea. Well, what's in the Mediterranean? If you're in the land of Israel going west toward the Atlantic Ocean, toward the United States, what do we find? We find a couple of islands. We find Greece. We find Italy. We find France and Spain. And we find North Africa. The Roman Empire. That's what the Roman Empire was at that time, everything in that area. So that's how I see it. I see the beast. The beast system is going to be a confederation, I think, of not just one nation, but Gentile nations that run the world under Satan's power. And I want to go back. I know we read this last week, but I want to go back to the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 7, because this is what sets this up. This is nothing new to John. Okay, if you haven't read Daniel for a while, you're reading the Revelation, you're like, ooh, very interesting. I've never seen this before. John's like, where have I seen this before? Because he read the book of Daniel. And in Daniel chapter 7, Daniel has a dream, and there is a series of animals, 3 animals, followed by this monstrous beast that he couldn't even put into words almost. Okay, watch this. Daniel chapter 7, verse 3, 4. I suppose I should probably help you follow along, right? Daniel chapter 7, verse 3. He had this vision. 4 large beasts came up from the sea. They were different from one another. Verse 4, the first one was like a lion. Verse 5, the second one appeared like a bear. Verse 6, I was watching another beast like a leopard. Remember those 3. And then verse 7, after these things, as I was watching in the night visions, a 4th beast appeared, dreadful, terrible, very strong. It had 2 large rows of iron teeth. It devoured and crushed, and anything that was left, it trampled with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that came before it, and it had 10 horns. The exact same thing that we see in the Revelation, we see all the way back here in Daniel chapter 7, 10 horns on this beast. As I was contemplating the horns, another horn, a small one, came up between them, and 3 of the former ones were torn out by the roots to make room for it. This horn had eyes resembling human eyes and a mouth speaking arrogant things. Now, verse 15. I'm not going through the entire chapter of Daniel chapter 7. Verse 15. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was distressed, and the visions of my mind were alarming me. I'm guessing that's sort of an understatement on top of the way the net just sort of smooths it out. Okay? He's like, oh yeah, I don't think he woke up and said, wow, that was a bad dream. What's for breakfast? Right? This was terrifying him. Woke up in a cold sweat. What in the world is going on here? And it turns out he's actually still in the vision. So he's asking someone, what is this? Revealed the interpretation, verse 17. These large beasts, which are 4 in number, lion, bear, leopard, and then this just ugly monster, represent 4 kings who will arise from the earth. Okay? Verse 19, then I wanted to know the meaning of the 4th beast. It was very different, and he describes it again. I also, verse 20, he said, I also wanted to know the meaning of the 10 horns. And of the other horn that came up, and 3 of them fell and had the mouth and all of this stuff. Verse 21, while I was watching that horn, the new one, number 11, which kicked out 3 of them, that horn began to wage war against the holy ones and was defeating them. Doesn't this sound exactly like what we read in the Revelation? Okay? What John was seeing in his vision and wrote down in the Revelation is almost exactly, or just maybe a fuller version of what Daniel saw in symbolic version. Exactly the same. John knew what he was looking at. Verse 23, just sort of skipping through chapter 7 here so we can set the scene. This is what he told me. The 4th beast means that there will be a 4th kingdom on earth that will differ from all the other kingdoms. It'll devour all the earth. It will trample and crush it. The 10 horns mean the 10 kings will arise from that kingdom. Hey, don't you love it when it interprets it for us? We don't even have to guess what's going on. Another king will rise after them. He'll be different from the earlier ones. He'll humiliate 3 kings. Okay, so that's the 3 little horns that he pops out. He'll speak words against the Most High. He will harass the holy ones of the Most High continually. His intention is actually going to change times established by law. It could be sacrificial times. It could be feasts. All of that. The holy ones will be delivered into his hand for time, times, and half a time. And we know that we've seen this over and over. This refers to 3.5 years, 1,260 days, 42 months. It all means the same thing. So what we have is a coalition of 10 rulers. We'll see in Revelation 17 the same thing, that these 10 are going to give their power, give their authority to the beast man. They're going to say, we've been in power. We want you to take control of the whole world. We see that in Revelation 17:3. But its power will come not from human. It's not just going to be another human empire. It's not even going to be just another violent empire. This empire is going to reflect Satan. Just whatever the dragon is in chapter 12, this system is going to actually play out on this world. It will be satanically infused, satanically empowered, and it will have reign over the entire world. Now, back in Revelation chapter 13, watch this. In Revelation 13, verse 2, the beast that I saw that came up out of the sea was like a leopard, its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. The exact same 3 animals we see back in Daniel chapter 7 are reflected here again in chapter 12, or in Revelation chapter 13, rather. It is going, whatever was the best, or maybe you would consider the worst, the strengths, the viciousness, whatever made those three stand out, it seems like this system is going to be the best of the best, or the worst of the worst, if you want to look at it that way. Okay, it is going to be the culmination of everything that these things were, but even more, the dragon gave the beast his power, his thorn, and great authority to rule. This is Satan's kingdom, finally come to earth. Now look at verse 3. One of the beast's heads appeared to have been killed, but the lethal wound had been healed. And the whole world followed the beast in amazement. They worshipped, notice, the dragon, because he had given ruling authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast too, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war against him?" One of the heads, I think, and there's definitely some flexibility here, and definitely I'd love to talk about this during second hour. I think what's going to happen is this, is that as throughout the first half of the 70th week, as things are getting set up, at the midpoint, finally, Satan is confined to earth. He finally brings his system, this capital B beast system, starts to rule the world. One person is going to come up as the face, as the ruler. This will be, we call him Antichrist, lowercase b beast. And I think at some point, very early on, he is going to be assassinated, or at least an attempted assassination. Okay, one of these heads of the beast, just one of them, it's going to be as if it had a fatal wound. Okay, and then it's going to come back, and because it comes back to life, that will be the thing that the whole world will bring the whole world together to worship Satan and to worship the satanic system. Now, I mean, this is just so creative, isn't it? Just so creative. Who would ever think of having a leader be killed and then come back to life as a unifying doctrine or a unifying force? Nobody's ever come up with that before, have they? Of course, this is a counterfeit, isn't it? That's all Satan can do. Satan is a master at counterfeiting. He has no original ideas. He has no creativity in himself. He is twisted in such a way that the best he can do is mimic and mock and counterfeit the good that God has already done. The difference is that when Jesus was crucified and came back to life, the whole world didn't follow him. I mean, that's sort of the job of the church, is to make disciples, to preach the gospel. We're trying to get the world to believe in him. But it's Satan's world. His kingdom is not fully born yet, but it is still Satan's world. He is the god of this age. He is the prince of the power of the air. The whole world, 1 John 5:19 says, lies in the hand of the evil one, the wicked one. He still pulls the strings around here. And that's why we have the majority of the world not believing in Jesus. But when Satan does it, now, is he really going to die? Is he really going to be resurrected? Here's the question. The question that is on everybody's mind, or maybe not, but should be, is, can Satan resurrect somebody? Can Satan resurrect him? Does he have the power to bring someone back to life who is dead? I don't know. I mean, some of you are going to jump on that no really, really quickly. I'm not willing to go quite that far because I don't know just how long of a leash God is giving him. Okay? It may be that God says, sure, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. The man dies, you can bring him back to life. It's not that he's the life giver. It's not that he's the creator. It's not that any of that, but it could be. I'm not willing to say no so strong. It could be that he can't, and that it is just a fake death and a fake resurrection that sort of fits his whole fake theme, right? But it's possible. Whatever it is, it's brilliant enough, it is believable enough that the entire world will say, wow, who could possibly bring someone back to life from the grave? He must be worshipped. And God's like, yeah, this is what I've been saying for 2,000 years, right? But Satan will do it, and he will grab the whole world to follow him through this one act. That's what sets up his kingdom for the rest of the 3.5 years. By the way, who is like the beast? This also is a direct counterfeit. This is a theft of the name Micah. In Hebrew, the word Micah, in English, it's really easy. It's three words. It's 5 letters. M-I-C-A-H. M-I-C-A-H. Depending on how you spell it, I guess. Micah. That's how we spelled it. M-I-C-A-H. In Hebrew, this is really cool. You're going to want to learn Hebrew at this point now. This is so cool. In Hebrew, those 5 English letters are 3 words. 3 Hebrew words slammed together. Okay? The M-I, the me, means who. The C means like. I'm not making this up. This is true. This is Hebrew, okay? Who, like, and the AH, when it's attached to the end of a name, it's a shortened form of Yah, Y-A-H, which is already a shortened form of Jehovah. It is an abbreviation. So, me-k-ah, who, like, is like Jehovah. That's what Micah's name means. That's what Micah means. It's one of the reasons we named our son Micah, is because of that deep meaning. And the people throughout the Old Testament, who is like God? Who is like Jehovah? Who is like the mantra, the chant that is going to be ringing through the world for the next 3.5 years during this 70th week. Who is like the beast? Who is like the beast? A direct theft, a direct copy. Again, from God. What's that? Who to man? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, and see, now I have to do this. Okay, this is funny. This is funny. I have to share this with you. I don't have to, but I'm going to. Actually, I do now because I said. So I was teaching a class for Calvary University. I teach Intro to Biblical Languages, a little bit of Greek, just enough to scare them and maybe whet their appetite. A little bit of Hebrew, definitely enough to scare them, not enough to whet their appetite. And in Hebrew, there's a thing that we call verbalist clauses. We do this in English a little bit, like you to man, right? Verbalist clauses, and somebody in the discussion forum was asking, well, why are they verbalists and just all this stuff? Because we only spent 2 weeks on it. And I said, well, technically they're not verbalists. It's not that there is no verb there. It's just that there is no verb in the printed text, but it's assumed. Okay, we do this all the time in English. Lots of languages do this. I said a great example is in 2 Samuel chapter 12, where Nathan, the prophet, confronts David for his affair with Bathsheba, and he tells the little story about the lamb and the rich man and the poor man and all this. And David says, "Oh, off with his head," and that sort of thing, because he's the king, right? And in Hebrew, no joke, in Hebrew there is no is in the following phrase. You the man, is what Nathan literally says to David. And if you're just reading through this, you could really take that the wrong way. You go, David, you the man. Of course, it's supposed to be you are the man, and our English translations properly, convey that, you are the man. It's not what Hebrew says. If you look at just the literal words on the page, it says, you the man. 2 completely different meanings. 2 completely different things there. Okay. Back to Revelation 13. So they are, the whole world is who is like the beast. And If somebody can come back if somebody has the power to raise somebody from the dead, how are you supposed to make war with them? How are you supposed to fight against them? Who is able to make war with the beast? Antichrist is going to, I think, take over 3 of the kings, and he's going to come to the forefront. The beast, verse 5, and I think this is probably the beast man now. This is Antichrist, because it seems to be focused on like the face and the mouth of the system. The beast was given a mouth speaking proud words and blasphemies, exactly what Daniel saw in Daniel 7. He was permitted to exercise ruling authority for 42 months, exactly what Daniel saw, except Daniel saw a time, times, and half a time. So the beast opened his mouth to blaspheme against God, to blaspheme both his name and his dwelling place, that is, those who dwell in heaven. His name and the dwelling place. He's going to speak against God. We saw that in Daniel chapter 7. He's also going to speak against God's temple, which ultimately is the temple in heaven. It's heaven itself, but it will be represented by a temple still here on earth. Okay? And the way he's going to do that is he is going to, this is what Jesus called the abomination of desolation, what Daniel referred to in Daniel chapter 9 as in the middle of this 70th week, he's going to do an abomination. Now, what he's going to do, we don't know exactly. His predecessor, Antiochus IV, who was a Roman general, came into the temple in between Malachi and Matthew in the intertestamental period. This is what sort of spurred the Maccabean revolt, and Israel was pushing back against Rome. Antiochus, the Roman general, same people as Antichrist is going to come from, came into the temple, and depending on which legend and which you read, he either brought in or he rode into the temple seated on a sow. Okay, a pig, a female pig. And he threw that thing up on the altar of God and slaughtered it and offered a sacrifice to Zeus on the altar of God in the temple in Jerusalem, completely defiling the altar, completely defiling the temple, completely blaspheming the name of Jehovah. That is, Antichrist is going to be bigger and brasher and louder than anything that came before. If Antiochus was willing to go that far, we have no idea what Antichrist is going to do. Not completely. Ultimately, according to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, he is going to, and this may be what it is, but how he goes about it, I'm not sure exactly. We have some ideas. But according to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, he is going to stand in the temple of God and declare himself to be God. Even Antiochus didn't do that. And he will demand, from this point on, you worship me. And don't you suppose that he's probably going to use the resurrection as proof that he's God? Right? I came back from the dead. I resurrected. You believe in somebody who did that thousands of years ago, but where's he? I'm here. You can see me. You can touch me. You can talk to me. Don't talk to me. Yeah, I'm here. Right? I demand that you worship me. And if you don't worship me, I'm going to kill you. It's really simple. It's just that simple. And that will be the system for the whole world. Not only that, but he was permitted. Notice, he was permitted. He was allowed. He cannot do anything on his own. Notice he was allowed, verse 7, permitted to go to war against the saints and to conquer them. God is going to allow the beast system and the beast man, he's going to allow Satan to win this battle. He won't win the war, but he will win this battle. And for 3.5 years, he will win and win and win and win. And saints will be slaughtered and Jews will be slaughtered. And the whole world will chant, who is like the beast? Who is like the beast? Who is like the beast? And it will be a wonderful time for those who follow Satan. Almost unimaginable, especially from our worldview, right? Almost unimaginable. He was given ruling authority over every tribe, people, language, nation, and all those who live on the earth. That's a phrase that shows up here in Revelation several times. Literally, the Greek phrase is the earth dwellers. The earth dwellers. And it means unbelievers in this case, those who are sort of what Ecclesiastes talks about, those who have an under the sun worldview, an unbelieving worldview. Okay? All those who live on the earth will worship the beast, everyone whose name has not been written since the foundation of the world in the book of life belonging to the Lamb who was killed. If anyone has an ear, he had better listen. Let him hear. This is the only time this phrase shows up in the book of the Revelation outside of the churches in chapters 2 and 3. We saw this several times, right? If anyone has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. This is a warning. This is one of the last chances. You had better listen. If anyone's meant for captivity, he will go there. If anyone's to be killed with the sword, by the sword he must be killed. This is God's confirmation of judgment on the world. I said the POWs and the martyrs of this period are encouraged to remember that God has permitted this. God has permitted this, and He will indeed judge. Let it happen. Let it go. He looks like he's winning, but in the end, he will not win. In the end, I will win. And this is a little sort of aside that John puts into the letter, because this book, this letter, this vision, the Revelation is still going to be available during the 70th week. People will find it. There will be Bibles all over the place. Okay? They will try to burn them, ban them, the whole thing. There will be Bibles. There will be people quoting this. There will be people preaching this. And verse 10 is not for us today. Verse 10 is for the people in that period that says, don't forget, God still wins. God cannot be overthrown. This requires steadfast endurance and faith from the saints. Now, in the last few verses, we come to a second beast. So we've got the beast system that is the face of this, the face is this first beast, Antichrist, and now we have a second beast. I saw another beast coming up from the earth. This one doesn't come up from the sea. This one comes up from the land, from the earth. I happen to think that means he's Jewish. I'm not willing to be dogmatic about that, but the fact that one comes from the sea, one comes from the earth, I find that really interesting. Okay, I think that this person is going to be Jewish. He had two horns like a lamb, not big, brash, bold horns, but he's sort of cute. But he was speaking like a dragon. Okay, he looks nice on the outside. He's very, very winsome, very amiable, the nice guy to get along with. He's going to be so easy to talk to, so easy to listen to, but he's going to have a serpentine tongue. His words will be dragonish, almost what you would consider uncharacteristic of this lamb. And people are going to be like, he speaks so harshly sometimes, but he's such a nice guy. Such a nice guy. He exercised all the ruling authority of the first beast on his behalf. He's the right-hand man. He is going to be the one who actually, and this pun intended, executes the orders of Antichrist. He will do what Antichrist wants done. Okay, he's going to be the guy. And made the earth and those who inhabit it worship the first beast, by the way, in case you forgot, the one whose lethal wound had been healed. He's going to keep bringing that up, by the way. Don't forget, he was resurrected. Right? He performed momentous signs. He's going to have the ability to do miracles, even to the point of making fire come down from heaven to the earth in front of the people. Who can do that? Only a messenger of God. I speak for God. You have to listen to me. And by the signs he was permitted to perform, notice the allowance that we see throughout here. God is allowing this to happen. It doesn't just happen, without. Permitted to perform on behalf of the beast, he deceived those who live on the earth. Not only that, he told those who live on the earth to make an image to the beast. He resurrected from the dead. We should build a statue in his honor. Don't we build statues for people that we honor? And then we tear them down several generations later, apparently. But we build statues for people that we honor. This second beast is, we should build a statue. Who is able to do? Who is like the beast? Who is like the beast? And they're going to build this statue or whatever it is. It's going to be a weird statue because the second beast was empowered to give life to the image of the first beast, the statue or whatever it is, so that it could speak. Is this a robot? Is this a hologram? I don't know exactly what's going on here, but it's some kind of image that can speak, or at least it has the impression that it can speak, and could cause all those who did not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Now, this is interesting because we'll come back to that. I want to show you that, but come back to that. In chapter 13, in chapter 14, in chapter 15, and 16, and 19, and 20, this concept is going to keep coming back. Not just that they worshiped the beast, but that they worshiped his image. They worshiped his image, and all who worshiped his image, and all who worshiped his image. That's going to be the thing during the second half of the 70th week. It's not just they worshiped Satan. It's not just they worshiped the dragon or they worshiped the beast man, but there's an image. Not unlike, I think, in Daniel chapter 3, where Nebuchadnezzar builds this statue, and he says, well, the whole world, when you hear the music, has to bow down. And I think, just like in Daniel chapter 3, there will be people who will stand there and say, we will not bow. And just like Nebuchadnezzar said, kill them with fire, interestingly enough, this one is going to be able to, he already talked about calling down fire from heaven. That's where the second beast was empowered to give life, and he could cause all those who did not worship the image of the beast to be killed. They will be killed if they do not worship the image. Notice also verse 16, he caused everyone, doesn't matter, small, great, rich, poor, free, slave, to obtain a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. Thus, no one was allowed to buy or sell things unless he bore the mark of the beast. That's either his name or his number. Verse 18 says, this calls for wisdom. Let the one who has insight calculate the beast's number, for it is a man's number, and his number is 666. Bum, bum, bum. All right. For everybody who's wondering, if you've accidentally had the mark of the beast, because over the years it's been all sorts of things, you got a credit card, you got a chip implantation, you got a social security number, you took a vaccine, you did whatever everybody says. Oh, this is the mark. No, it's not. No, it's not. Can the technology that we're seeing today be used to make this happen in the future? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, these are not stupid people. We may disagree with them completely, but they're not stupid people. Satan is not stupid. He will use everything at his disposal to make this happen. But we have seen over the past couple of years how easy it is. We've talked about this in the second hour several weeks ago. We can see how easy it is for an entire world to say, yes, we should get this thing because it's going to help the world. Think of the children, right? We all should get the thing. Whatever the thing is going to be, we all have to get the thing. And it's going to be easy to convince people to get the thing. And eventually, you're not going to be able to go places if you don't have the thing. You're not going to be able to go into stores and buy stuff if you don't have the thing. Whatever the thing is going to be, this mark. And we've seen recently how easy it is to convince people of that. All over the world. Okay? And so, what we have is we have Satan, we have an Antichrist, and we have a false prophet. And back on this slide that I skipped over here, Satan's counterfeit trinity is complete. We have a three-part pseudo-godhead. Satan is the father, he is the head, he is the one who comes up with the plan. Antichrist is the one, like Jesus, is the one who does the action of the plan, who puts it into action. Antichrist is the face of it. He's the one who commands that it be done. And just like the Holy Spirit empowers God's plan, the false prophet will be the one who actually makes it happen in the world. Satan's biggest counterfeit is complete when we get to the second half of the 70th week. The thing that he's always wanted to do, rule the world with his own little board, he will finally have it. And they will do exactly what a reflection of what the Father, the Son, and the Spirit are doing in this world, except it'll be much more visible. It'll be much more amazing to the senses, and it's going to be worldwide. Jesus had such a tiny little ministry. Israel is so small. He barely even crossed the border only a few times. He did not have a worldwide ministry. We're going to make this thing huge. That's what's going to happen during the second half of the 70th week, the second half of what we usually call the tribulation. Revelation chapters 12 and 13, I'm just going to put them right here. Now we have an image. Now we have death. Now we have a mark. Now we have a full satanic kingdom. We have a full satanic kingdom for this time. Who is like the beast? Who could possibly make war with him and win? I know who can. And so do you. But during this time, he will permit it to happen because the end is not yet come. It's not quite time. How many times throughout the New Testament especially, but even throughout the Old Testament a little bit, do we find the phrase at the right time, at the right time, at the proper time, at the fullness of time, at just the right moment, God stepped in to do what only God can do. And this world is going to degenerate into a disaster. Satan is a destroyer. So that's what Satan does. He destroys. And this world, when he finally has control over it the way he wants, he will destroy it. But God has permitted it. He's going to permit it, and it requires steadfast endurance, and it requires faith. For us who are reading this here today, we're like, I don't have to be in it. So glad I don't have to be in it. So glad. After church last week, I was talking with a couple of people, and somebody said it really emphasizes the doctrine of the rapture, right? That Jesus, we are not destined for this if we know Christ as Savior. Jesus is going to rescue us from this. But for those who don't know Christ as Savior, this is what they're facing. That's why we need to know it. That's why we study this, so that we know what our friends and our family are potentially looking at. And I keep saying this, but 2 Peter 3 says, what kind of people should we be today, knowing what's coming? Knowing what's coming. For everybody who wants to focus on the 666 and it's here and it's not here and what is it? And, is it going to be somebody's name? There are people who spend their entire lives trying to figure out what is this thing, right? I love this. Here's how I'm going to end. I love this quote from J. Vernon McGee. He says, I would suggest that we not waste our time trying to identify a person by this number. Even John says it's going to take wisdom, and they're going to have to calculate. They're going to have to figure it out. It's not going to be like wide open. Hey, everybody get a 666. It's my number. Okay, it's not going to be that obvious. It's going to be very subtle. They're going to have to calculate it. They're going to have to take wisdom. It's not going to be obvious for pretty much anybody in the world. And so people spend their lives today trying to figure this out. He said, I suggest that we not waste our time. Instead, we need to present Jesus Christ so that we might reduce the population of those who have to go through this great tribulation period and who will, therefore, end up knowing what it means. I think that's a pretty good reminder, isn't it? Pretty good reminder. How about if instead of worrying about what it's going to be, how about if we worry about making sure that fewer and fewer people have to find out what it's going to be? I think that's a great quote. I think that's a great reminder. And that brings us to the end of Revelation chapter 13. Again, one of those great inspiring, passages. But we need to know it. This is why he gave us the text, so that we know this, so that we can obey at least the little parts that we know we should be obeying.